Have you ever wondered what would happen if a weary veteran searching for peace followed his loyal dog into the heart of a silent forest and stumbled upon a forgotten castle that should never have been found? What hidden stories would rise from its broken walls? And what miracle might unfold when truth long buried finally reaches the light? This is the journey of Sam Walker and his faithful dog Buddy, a journey of danger, courage, and the quiet grace that saves lives when hope seems lost. I hope you enjoy this story and let it bring warmth to your heart. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below and subscribe. The morning sky over Pinecrest Forest was a pale silver gray, and the air carried a soft coolness that brushed through the trees like a gentle breath. Light mist drifted between the trunks, and the forest floor smelled of wet earth and pine resin, as though the land itself was exhaling after a long night. This peaceful setting felt distant from the noise of towns and highways, and it was exactly what Sam Walker needed. Sam was a man near 40, with a rugged face shaped by years under harsh suns during his military deployment. His jaw was square and sturdy, and a faint, rough stubble covered his cheeks and chin. His hair was dark brown, touched lightly with gray strands that marked both age and burden. His shoulders were broad from years of carrying heavy packs and marching across broken lands. His eyes held a quiet heaviness, the kind that came from memories that refused to fade. He had once been a soldier driven by duty, but after returning home, he struggled to rebuild a life that no longer felt familiar. He worked hard labor jobs, mostly loading freight or repairing fences for small ranches. The pay was modest, and the physical work helped keep his thoughts anchored, but the loneliness in his chest always crept back at night. Sam had come to Pinecrest Forest, seeking a pause from the weight inside him. The forest was far enough that the world would leave him alone, and close enough that he could hike out if needed. With him was Buddy, a 4-year-old German shepherd with a thick tan and black coat, and bright amber eyes that reflected the intelligence of a loyal guardian. Buddy had a strong build, yet moved with smooth kindness. His ears perked at every small sound, and his tail swayed with patient steadiness. Sam had adopted Buddy from a rescue group 2 years earlier. The dog had been found injured after wandering the outskirts of a small town, and despite the scars hidden under his fur, Buddy carried a calm confidence. Sam often felt that the dog understood him more deeply than any person could. As Sam walked deeper into the forest, Buddy trotted close to his side, occasionally running ahead to sniff the air. Sam carried a worn backpack filled with basic supplies and a small canvas tent. Every step onto the soft ground felt like a slow release of tension. The forest quiet wrapped around him, and for a moment his mind felt clear. Yet as peaceful as Pinecrest seemed, Sam carried a storm of emotions beneath his calm expression. He lived in a modest rented room behind a mechanic shop, and working different shifts left him exhausted most nights. Bills pressed against him like invisible weights. His body bore the marks of old injuries from service, and his sleep was often broken by flashes of memory that returned without warning. The forest was his attempt to gather himself again, a place where he could breathe and feel something steady and grounded. Buddy paused at the base of a large fallen tree, his nose twitching as he studied a faint scent carried by the wind. Sam watched him with a small flicker of curiosity. The companionship of Buddy was the single anchor that kept him moving forward on days when he felt lost. The dog barked once, a low, soft sound, and Sam smiled gently, though the smile did not quite reach his tired eyes. Sam set down his pack near a clearing surrounded by tall pines, whose branches shielded them from the wind. He chose this place because the forest floor was level, and the open sky above allowed a hint of sunlight to slip through the canopy. He began to set up the tent, and Buddy circled the area, sniffing with growing excitement. Sam moved methodically, as if the familiar steps of building a temporary shelter gave him purpose. Once the tent was ready, he sat on a flat stone and allowed his body to rest. Buddy settled near his feet, placing his head gently against Sam's boot, as though offering comfort. Sam breathed deeply, letting the crisp forest air fill his lungs. The quiet around him felt different from the silence in his rented room. This silence was alive and warm, with the hum of distant leaves and small creatures moving unseen. His thoughts wandered back to the years before. The desert heat, the metallic smell of dust and fuel, the weight of survival decisions. He had seen friends vanish to the chaos of conflict, and he carried the guilt of not being able to save everyone. Those memories shaped the way he walked, spoke, and even breathed. They made him cautious with people and gentle with animals. He rarely spoke about his time away, and when strangers asked, he answered politely but briefly. Buddy lifted his head again, noticing the shift in Sam's energy. The dog nudged his hand with a warm nose, and Sam let out a slow exhale, brushing his fingers through Buddy fur. The touch grounded him, easing the tremor of emotion that rose whenever he lingered too long in his memories. Sam whispered softly, though, without using any special symbols or tone. "You and I, Buddy, we just need a break out here." Buddy responded by resting his head on Sam's knee. As the sun climbed gently behind the thin clouds, Sam prepared a simple meal, heating water over a small camp stove. The smell of pine drifted on the air, and the sound of distant birds echoed between the trunks. Sam felt something inside him shift, a subtle moment of reprieve from the burden he carried. Maybe he thought this trip would not fix everything, but it might help him breathe again. As the morning passed, Sam decided to explore deeper trails branching behind the clearing. Buddy led the way, stepping lightly over moss and fallen branches. The deeper they walked, the more the forest seemed to change. The trees grew taller and closer together, and the air carried a colder undertone, as if shading secrets hidden beyond sight. Sam did not know yet what awaited him in the shadows of Pinecrest Forest. He only knew that he sought quiet, but something in the land seemed to be quietly waiting for him as well. He felt it in the way Buddy paused, more often scanning the woods with alert senses. He felt it in the faint shift of the breeze that cooled the back of his neck. But for now, he allowed the forest to guide him forward. He breathed slower, steadier, letting the rhythm of nature settle into his bones. In this moment, Sam Walker, a man worn by war and hardship, simply walked with Buddy at his side, unaware that the path ahead would lead him to a discovery hidden for decades. For now, he walked seeking peace beneath the towering pines, carrying hope that maybe this journey into the quiet heart of Pinecrest Forest would give him strength to face the days beyond. The mist in Pinecrest Forest thickened as noon approached, drifting like pale smoke between the towering trunks. The air grew cooler, and the light dimmed under the heavy canopy, giving the forest an ancient, solemn quiet that felt older than memory itself. Sam Walker moved carefully along a narrow trail, his boots pressing softly into the moist ground, while Buddy trotted ahead, following a scent that seemed to pull him with steady certainty. Buddy lifted his head every few moments, testing the air with keen amber eyes, flicking from shadow to shadow, as though reading messages hidden within the wind. Sam felt the shift in the forest, and it stirred something inside him, a mixture of curiosity and unease. He had come into these woods seeking peace, but the path Buddy had chosen felt unlike any trail he had walked before. Sam kept his gaze focused on the dog, trusting Buddy instincts more than his own. Buddy was a sturdy German shepherd with a thick coat of tan and black fur that gleamed faintly whenever weak sunlight broke through the branches. His ears stood tall and alert, and his tail moved in slow, controlled sweeps, showing his deep concentration. Sam had learned during their years together that Buddy did not behave like this unless something significant was ahead. As they went deeper, the forest around them seemed untouched by time. Moss blanketed fallen logs, and vines curled from high branches like thick ropes. The scent of earth and damp roots intensified with each step, and Sam felt the weight of the environment settle over him. The world here felt preserved like a memory long hidden. Sam moved with careful determination, though a tremor of nerves ran through him. He had always been a man molded by struggle, shaped by harsh landscapes and the unpredictable dangers of deployment. He knew how to keep his breath steady and his senses open, yet the silence in this part of the forest unsettled him in a different way. It felt as though he was intruding upon a place that had been waiting for years undisturbed. Buddy suddenly stopped near a cluster of thick ferns. His body stiffened, and he released a low sound deep in his chest, almost like a warning, but not quite fear. Sam slowed his pace and approached with deliberate caution, feeling the familiar heaviness in his chest tighten. He crouched beside Buddy, placing a reassuring hand on the dog back, and studied the ground ahead. The ferns parted into a narrow passage between two slanting stone formations, both covered in dense green moss. Buddy stepped forward, nose close to the ground, following a scent line invisible to Sam. The narrow path opened into a hollow where the mist thickened and the air felt colder, as though the sunlight could not reach this hidden space. Sam's senses sharpened as his breath grew slower. The dampness in the air clung to his skin, and a faint metallic smell drifted through the hollow like fragments of something old. He felt a pull in his chest, an instinct urging him to follow Buddy, though he did not know why. Buddy walked ahead with careful steps, pausing every few meters to sniff the ground or lift his ears toward distant sounds. Sam followed his movements, feeling both trust and tension intertwine. After several minutes, the hollow widened and the mist thinned just enough for Sam to see the dark outline of something rising beyond the trees. He squinted, pushing aside a branch, and froze. Before him stood a massive stone structure, half claimed by vines and creeping roots. The building rose in jagged lines, reaching toward the canopy that shielded it from the sky. It was immense, old and silent, a castle hidden in the heart of Pinecrest Forest. Sam stood still, unable to breathe for a moment. His eyes traced the weathered stones covered in thick layers of moss. Vines draped across broken archways and empty window frames. The structure was not merely abandoned, it was swallowed by time. It did not appear on any map he had studied. Nothing in modern records spoke of a castle in these woods. But he stepped closer to the outer wall, sniffing the air with earnest curiosity. His tail lifted slightly, though not in excitement, but in recognition, as if he sensed something about the place that Sam could not yet grasp. Sam approached slowly, each step heavy with disbelief. He reached out and brushed his fingers along the rough stone, feeling the cold dampness that seeped through the surface. The castle seemed to exhale in silence, as if acknowledging his presence. Inside him, a quiet storm began. He had spent years trying to escape memories of the past, yet here stood something that felt even older than his own pain, a relic of a forgotten era. Sam swallowed hard and drew a deep breath, feeling both wonder and unease settle inside him. The castle towered above him, with sections crumbled and lost to time. The stone walls were patched with lichen, and the windows were dark hollow openings. Branches from nearby pines leaned across the roof, their needles scattering across cracked tiles. The building seemed shaped by both human hands and nature, slow, persistent reclaiming. Buddy circled a broken column, sniffing intently. The dog movements remained cautious but steady. Sam felt grateful for Buddy's presence. The dog's calm focus grounded him. It reminded him of the silent moments during his service when a fellow soldier nearby made fear manageable simply by being there. Sam took slow steps around the castle exterior. The more he looked, the more he felt the weight of history pressing around him. He imagined the lives that might have moved within these walls long before the forest crept in. He wondered how such a massive structure had been forgotten. Yet as he walked, a quiet truth took root in him. This discovery was not random. Something had led him and Buddy here. Maybe instinct, maybe fate, maybe the forest itself, guiding them toward a path hidden from the world. Sam paused again and studied the castle from a distance. The mist now drifted lazily across the stone, giving it an otherworldly glow. The silence around him felt deeper than before, not threatening, but waiting. Buddy returned to Sam, side resting his head gently against Sam's knee, as if sensing the shift in his thoughts. Sam placed a hand on Buddy's warm fur, letting the contact steady him. The forest had been his escape, but now it held something far greater than solitude. A secret, long buried under vines and centuries. Sam felt a mixture of anticipation and caution. The castle doors stood partly concealed by roots and thick plant growth, but their presence called to him. He wondered what remained inside. He wondered what story had been left unfinished here. But he did not step forward yet. Instead, he closed his eyes briefly and inhaled the rich scent of the forest, grounding himself in the moment. His heart beat steadily, though he felt the echo of something rising deep within him. He opened his eyes and looked again at the castle. It stood silent, majestic in its decay, a piece of history hidden in plain sight. Buddy remained alert, watching the structure with a calm, steady gaze. Sam knew the discovery marked the beginning of something he could not yet understand, but he also felt that nothing from this point would remain the same. He and Buddy had found something that the world had forgotten, something waiting in the mist for a long time. And although Sam had come only for a quiet escape, he sensed the forest had chosen to show him more. The chapter closed on this moment. As Sam and Buddy stood before the ancient castle, their hearts stirred by curiosity and a quiet pull toward the past that waited behind the weathered stone walls. The air inside the ancient castle felt heavier than the forest outside, carrying a faint chill that drifted through the broken arches like the breath of distant winters. Light seeped weakly through narrow cracks in the stone walls, turning the dust in the air into slow, floating particles. The scent was a mix of old stone-dried moss and forgotten time. Sam Walker stepped carefully across the worn floor of the great hall, his boots echoing gently against the empty space. Buddy moved beside him, the sound of his paws soft but alert as he sniffed every corner with growing interest. Sam heartbeat with quiet tension. He had not expected to find anything like this, hidden deep within Pinecrest Forest. The discovery of the castle unsettled him, yet awakened a spark of curiosity he thought he no longer possessed. Buddy paused near a collapsed column, his ears turning forward. His strong tan and black frame tensed, and Sam felt the shift instantly. Years of relying on Buddy instincts had sharpened his trust in the dog reactions. When Buddy behaved like this, something important was near. Sam lowered his voice, keeping it steady and calm, though he felt a knot of anticipation tighten in his chest. He took a step closer, watching as Buddy sniffed the ground again and again, circling a specific patch of stone near the center of the hall. The floor there was cracked in irregular lines. Thin layers of dust shifted beneath Buddy Paws as he scraped lightly at the surface. Sam stopped a few feet away, crouching slowly, his broad shoulders tightening as he leaned in. Buddy let out a low rumble, deep and focused, not aggressive, but intent. He began to dig harder, his claws scraping the brittle stone. Small bits of debris broke away, revealing a darker layer beneath. Sam felt a surge of alertness that reminded him of moments in his past when a simple detail on the ground had meant danger or discovery. He steadied his breath and placed a hand on Buddy's back. The dog muscles twitched with determination, as if he already understood what he had found. Sam brushed aside loose fragments of stone, his rough fingers tracing along the widening crack. The ground here was not solid. The stone felt thin and brittle, like a surface hiding something beneath it. A cold whisper of air drifted upward from the crack, brushing across Sam's hand. His heart thudded once heavy and deliberate. He cleared more debris, using careful strokes, until part of the floor gave way, revealing a narrow opening, barely wide enough for a person to slip through. Sam stared into the darkness below. The scent of age and dust rose from the gap. Buddy stood beside him, tail still, ears pointed toward the opening. Sam felt the familiar conflict within him, a mix of caution shaped by years of surviving dangerous terrain and curiosity driven by the need to understand what kind of place this castle had once been. He placed the flashlight beam downward, revealing a narrow stone staircase descending into shadow. The steps were uneven, worn, nearly smooth by years of silence. Sam knew he could turn back. He had come to these woods only for peace, not for mysteries hidden under cracked stone. Yet something about the moment gripped him, a feeling that the forest had guided him here, not by accident, but by design. He exhaled slowly, gathering his resolve, and began to descend the narrow steps, with Buddy close behind. The walls surrounding the staircase were made of dark stone that absorbed most of the light. The air grew cooler with each step, and tiny droplets of moisture clung to the surface of the walls. Sam kept his free hand against the stone for balance, feeling the rough, uneven texture beneath his fingers. The descent stretched longer than he expected, and his mind wandered. He thought of the long nights, when memories from deployment visited him uninvited. He thought of the restlessness that had driven him to seek refuge in this forest. In a strange way, the hidden stairs echoed that feeling, a path downward into something old and buried, waiting to be uncovered. When Sam reached the bottom, he stepped into a narrow chamber. The air was thick with dust and silence. The beam of his flashlight cut through layers of darkness, revealing shelves lining the walls from floor to ceiling. The shelves were wooden, brittle with age, but still intact. Sam's heart thudded faster as he approached the nearest shelf. Rows upon rows of journals, lay there bound in worn, leather-faded cloth or cracked parchment. Some were stacked carefully, others rested in uneven piles. Buddy sniffed one of the lower shelves, his breath stirring the dust into soft clouds. The journals varied in size and color. Some were small enough to fit in a pocket, while others were large, heavy volumes with spines warped by time. Sam reached out and picked up one of the books, wiping its cover gently with his sleeve. The paper inside was yellowed and fragile. Ink marks filled each page with neat flowing handwriting. He could not yet read the words in the dim light, but he sensed the depth of the stories held within. As he moved deeper into the chamber, he noticed more shelves surrounding them, forming a maze of old knowledge. There were scrolls tied with faded ribbon sheets of loose parchment, sketches, maps, and bound collections of what looked like personal reflections. Sam felt a strange pull in his chest. These were not treasures of gold or relics of battle. These were pieces of human life preserved across generations. He imagined the people who once lived in the castle sitting by candlelight recording moments of fear, hope, loss, and joy. Their voices lingered in the pages, waiting for someone to hear them again. Buddy nudged Sam, leg gently grounding him back to the present. Sam nodded and whispered quietly, though without special punctuation. "We found something important, Buddy." His voice carried both awe and uncertainty. He never saw himself as someone meant to uncover forgotten stories. He often felt like a man trying simply to stay afloat in the currents of life after war. But here in the quiet depth of the castle, he felt an unexpected connection to the people who had written these journals. He understood the need to express emotions, to capture memories, to leave behind traces of a life once lived. Sam took another slow breath, absorbing the stillness of the chamber. He felt the weight of the place settle on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a calling. Maybe this discovery meant something. Maybe he and Buddy had stumbled into a part of history that had been waiting for decades. He gently placed the journal back onto the shelf and looked around one more time, letting the atmosphere imprint itself in his mind. The chamber felt ancient but alive, filled with stories, yet silent until someone chose to listen. Sam placed a steady hand on Buddy's neck and guided him toward the staircase. For now, they would leave the journals untouched. He would return when he felt ready to explore the lives preserved within them. As he climbed the steps back toward the great hall, Sam felt different. The man who had entered the castle seeking only quiet had crossed into something far more profound. He and Buddy had uncovered a secret kept in darkness for generations. And though he did not yet understand the meaning of it, he knew that this moment marked the beginning of a story much older than his own. The chapter closed with Sam stepping back into the dim light of the great hall, Buddy at his side, and the knowledge of what lay beneath the floor settling deep within him. The hidden chamber of journals waited silently, ready to reveal its truths when the time came. The afternoon light inside the ancient castle softened into a muted gray glow, drifting through the fractured gaps in the old stone walls. Outside, the forest wind brushed gently across the treetops, sending faint whispers through the empty window frames. The air inside the great hall felt cooler now, as though the deeper discoveries from below had stirred something long dormant. Sam Walker stood in the quiet space, holding one of the journals he had carried up from the hidden chamber. Dust clung to its edges, and the cover was made of stiff, dark leather, mottled with age. He rested his back lightly against a cracked pillar and drew a slow breath, steadying himself. Buddy lay near his feet, the dog strong and attentive, with ears angled forward as if guarding Sam's emotional state. Sam opened the journal carefully, turning the fragile pages filled with delicate handwriting that stretched across each sheet. The ink had faded into a soft brown tone, but the words remained clear enough to read. The language felt old-fashioned and patient, revealing the thoughts of someone who had lived in a world very different from Sam's own. As Sam read, he felt the weight of the past settle gently over his shoulders. The entries spoke of life inside the castle, not as a place of grandeur, but as a living home where families had gathered shared meals and watched the seasons move across the forest. There were reflections about harvest celebrations, about storms that shook the high towers, and about the sense of responsibility that came with guarding such a grand structure in the wilderness. As he turned another page, Sam noticed a sharp shift in tone. The writing grew heavier, the strokes darker and more hurried. Sam slowed his breath, leaning closer as the journal words described a storm that had struck generations earlier. A storm fierce enough to drive travelers and nearby farmers toward the castle, seeking shelter from violent winds and pounding rain. The writer had captured the scene with trembling sentences, describing the fear that had filled the halls as thunder rolled above the stone ceiling. Sam imagined the moment, countless footsteps rushing inside, frightened voices echoing in chambers now empty and quiet. He could almost see them, families huddled together beneath the vast dome that had once crowned the great hall. The writer spoke of pity and concern for the people who had come to the castle, trusting its walls to shield them. But then the words shifted again, and Sam felt his chest tighten. The journal described a rumble that began deep within the stone structure. The dome had been old even at that time, weathered by seasons of storms and years of neglect. As the storm raged above the dome, weakened by cracks no one had seen, finally gave way. The collapse was swift and devastating. The writer had recorded the terror in short, uneven lines, describing how the ceiling fell in a wave of stone dust and shattered beams, trapping and killing many of those who had sought safety beneath it. The ink marks wavered, as though the writer hand had trembled while capturing the memory. Sam felt a cold ache form deep inside him. He closed his eyes, briefly picturing the destruction. He could sense the grief of the families who had come seeking protection only to face tragedy. Buddy lifted his head, sensing the shift in Sam's breathing. The dog pressed closer, offering silent comfort. Sam ran a hand across Buddy's strong neck, grounding himself. When Sam opened his eyes, he continued reading. The journal narrator described how the tragedy had shaken the family who owned the castle. They had been known as the Whitford family, recorded as long-standing stewards of the region. The writer portrayed them as people who held pride in their home and carried a sense of quiet duty toward travelers and locals. But fear had consumed them after the collapse. Fear of blame, fear of legal consequences, fear of losing the legacy they had tried to preserve. According to the journal, the Whitford family made a terrible decision. Instead of reporting the collapse, they sealed the damaged hall, repaired the structure as best they could, and hid the truth. They buried the memory beneath silence, allowing stories to twist into rumors of disappearances, while the real cause remained locked behind generations of guilt. As Sam read the final lines, a deep sadness settled inside him. The writer expressed sorrow for the families who had lost loved ones, and sorrow for the Whitfords who had allowed fear to overshadow integrity. The journal ended without resolution, leaving Sam with the weight of unfinished truth. He leaned back against the cracked pillar, feeling the chill of the stone seep into his skin. He looked around the hall now, understanding why parts of the structure felt fractured and uneven. The castle bore the scars of that tragedy, quietly holding the memory of lives lost beneath its once proud dome. Sam exhaled slowly. He had come to the forest searching for peace, but instead found a story shaped by grief, silence, and fear. Yet he also felt something unexpected stirring within him, a sense of connection, a sense that he and Buddy had uncovered something meant to be known again. Buddy nudged Sam's leg with a soft push of his nose. Sam looked down at the dog, broad, intelligent face, seeing loyalty and concern reflected in Buddy amber eyes. He placed a hand on the dog's back, letting the contact calm him. Reading about the tragedy brought up familiar feelings for Sam. He knew what it meant to carry guilt and heavy memories. He knew what it meant to hide pain from others because the truth felt too heavy to voice. Sam lifted the journal again and gently closed it, feeling the rough texture beneath his fingers. His thoughts drifted to the Whitford family. He imagined them watching the storm, struggling with helplessness, and later living with the burden of silence. He wondered how many generations had carried the weight of that hidden night. The hall around him felt different now. The emptiness carried echoes from the past. Sam scanned the high archways and damaged stone panels, sensing that he stood in a place shaped not only by time, but by human emotion. The tragedy was no longer just a record in a journal. It was woven into the very stones beneath him. As he stood in the quiet great hall, Sam felt both sorrow for the lives lost and compassion for those who had kept the secret. He breathed deeply, as though the air itself carried the last remnants of their sorrow. Buddy stepped forward, placing himself between Sam and the cracked stone floor, as if acting as both guardian and witness. Sam knew he and Buddy had uncovered a truth silenced for decades. He did not know what he would do with this knowledge yet. But the discovery changed the way he saw the castle. It was no longer just an abandoned ruin hidden by the forest. It was a place shaped by human stories, stories of hope, fear loss, and choices made under the weight of despair. Sam tucked the journal safely into his pack. He gave one last look around the great hall, feeling a pull deep in his chest. The castle was calling not for intrusion, but for understanding. Perhaps by uncovering the truth, he and Buddy could offer this forgotten place a chance to be seen again, not as a ruin, but as a story waiting for closure. The chapter closed on Sam standing beside Buddy beneath the fractured stone ceiling, holding the weight of the truth revealed in the journal, and sensing that their discovery was only the beginning of something larger. The sky above the forest carried a pale and steady light, while thin clouds drifted low over the treetops. The air felt still, but heavy, as if waiting for a change. Inside the old castle, Sam Walker moved slowly through the dusty hall, carrying the journals he had gathered. Buddy followed close with his quiet, steady gait, sensing Sam's thoughtful mood. The discovery from the previous day lingered in Sam's mind and settled deep inside him like a stone pressed against memory. He walked along the corridor that led back to the underground chamber, wanting to understand more about what had happened in the castle past. The hidden room felt colder as he stepped inside. Moss covered the corners, and the smell of old paper rose from the shelves. Sam set the journals aside and let his eyes adjust to the dim light. He looked for something that might explain the collapse more clearly. As he inspected the shelves, he noticed a wooden case at the very bottom half, buried in dust. The wood was dry and fractured, but still intact. Sam pulled it out and brushed away the dirt, feeling the grain against his fingers. He opened the lid gently, and inside lay several folded sheets of paper, bound with a thin strip of fabric. Buddy moved closer, lowering his head to sniff the edges as if sensing importance. Sam unrolled the sheets slowly. They were large architectural drawings, mapped with faded lines and symbols. The ink had thinned in places, but the details remained visible enough for him to recognize the structure of the castle. Multiple pages showed the tower's chambers and foundations drawn with patient precision by hands that belonged to an earlier century. Sam felt a quiet awe settle in him. Whoever had created these plans had cared deeply about the construction. But as he examined the final sheet, his breath caught. It displayed the western foundation of the castle, showing support columns and underground passages. Red ink marked the weak areas with short notes, written in a hurried script. Although time had softened the markings, Sam understood the meaning. The ground beneath the western side of the castle was unstable. According to the diagram, the foundation had worn thin over many decades. Cavities had formed under the stone, creating hollow pockets that could fail if heavy rain or pressure built along the surface. Sam felt the weight of the discovery settle into his chest. He remembered how the forest had looked when he arrived. He remembered the groups of campers he had seen while hiking in. Families with bright tents and small fires scattered along the western edge of the woods. They had seemed relaxed, cheerful, unaware of the danger beneath them. Buddy nudged Sam's leg softly, sensing the rise in his tension. Sam knelt and rested a hand on Buddy's shoulder, grounding himself. The dog amber eyes were calm and steady, a silent reminder that Sam was not alone in facing whatever lay ahead. Sam lifted the diagram again, studying the fragile lines. The red marks indicated that even normal rainfall could cause strain, but extended storms would be disastrous. The ground could shift, suddenly pulling down anything above it. A collapse would spread outward, affecting not only the castle, but also the forest area where the campers were staying. Sam exhaled slowly. A feeling he had learned long ago in the military rose inside him. It was the familiar tension between fear and responsibility. He had known battlefield pressure that sharpened judgment and quickened instinct. He recognized it now as his mind moved through possibilities. He did not know exactly how much time there was before the next rainfall. The air outside had felt heavy, and the clouds had drifted low. The weather could change quickly. He looked around the chamber again, feeling the silence press against him. The castle had carried its secrets for decades, perhaps longer, but the truth was no longer hidden. Sam had uncovered it, and now he could not ignore what he knew. Lives were at risk, and he felt the old sense of duty returning. Not the duty he had once known in uniform, where orders were given and followed, but a quieter personal duty shaped by compassion and the understanding of loss. Buddy shifted his weight, watching Sam carefully. The dog, powerful frame, and alert posture gave Sam a sense of grounding. Sam pressed a hand to Buddy's strong back, feeling the warmth beneath the fur. In moments like this, Buddy's presence mattered more than words. Sam rolled the diagram carefully and placed it into his pack. He rose and stepped out of the chamber, the dim passage stretching before him. As he walked through the cracked doorway, he felt the quiet of the castle deepen around him. It felt as though the walls themselves understood the weight of what he now carried. When he reached the courtyard, he paused, letting the forest sounds reach him. Distant voices of campers faint through the trees. Laughter, the clinking of metal cookware. The world outside was unaware of the threat beneath their feet. Sam tightened his jaw. He felt a mix of urgency and determination rising within him. The discovery of the hollow foundation was more than a historical note. It was a warning, one that demanded action. Buddy trotted beside him, ears up, and alert, ready to follow his lead. Sam stepped toward the forest trail, knowing he needed to confirm the layout of the land. He needed to understand exactly where the campers were in relation to the unstable ground. As he moved through the trees, the insecurities of the castle foundation continued to echo in his mind. The thought that people could be resting above an invisible danger stirred both fear and resolve within him. The chapter closed with Sam holding the knowledge of the old diagram and understanding that the Western Foundation was hollow and unstable. The campers nearby were in silent danger, and Sam knew he and Buddy would have to act before nature did. The sky above the forest darkened into a heavy gray as thick clouds rolled in from the distant hills. The air felt tense and damp, carrying the first hints of a coming storm. The wind swept low through the trees, stirring needles and leaves with a restless sound. Sam Walker stepped out of the castle entrance, with Buddy close beside him. He felt the pressure shift in the air, a quiet warning he had learned to sense long before returning to civilian life. Years of service had taught him to read approaching danger, not only through sight, but through instinct and the tightening rhythm of his breath. The memory of the old diagram weighed heavily in his mind. The fragile foundation beneath the western side of the castle created a silent threat, and any strong rainfall could trigger disaster. Sam looked at the sky again and felt a rising urgency. He heard Buddy let out a low, uneasy rumble, the kind the dog made when something felt wrong. Buddy, a strong 6-year-old dog with a thick coat of mixed tan and black fur, raised his head toward the treetops. His ears stood high and alert. Sam knelt beside him, feeling the dog muscles tighten beneath his hand. A crack of distant thunder rumbled across the forest. The storm was coming faster than Sam expected. He thought of the campers scattered through the woods. They were resting unaware, laughing earlier, without knowing they were above a dangerous foundation that could collapse at any moment under the force of a storm. Sam felt the familiar swell of responsibility gather within him. He knew he could not stand still while lives were at risk. Buddy suddenly threw his head back and let out a long, deep howl, a sound filled with warning and urgency. Sam felt his pulse quicken. Buddy rarely howled unless danger was immediate. The dog then pushed against Sam, leg pulling him toward the forest trail. Sam understood the message. There was no time to hesitate. He began running with Buddy, racing ahead, guiding him through the thickening shadows of the woods. The wind increased, sweeping branches overhead, while the first drops of rain struck the ground with sharp tapping sounds. Sam moved quickly, following Buddy's steady pace, while memories of emergency evacuations rose in him. He had once guided civilians through collapsing towns and uncertain terrain. Now he felt the same weight pressing against his chest. Buddy darted ahead toward the cluster of tents. Smoke from campfires drifted weakly as the storm winds beat them down. Sam could see people moving inside their tents, unaware of what was unfolding around them. He reached the first tent and knocked firmly on the canvas with the flat of his hand. The man who stepped out was in his early 30s, with short brown hair and tired eyes, but he looked startled at the urgency in Sam's expression. Sam forced his breath steady and said, "The ground is unsafe, and you need to move now." Rain began to fall harder, pelting their shoulders. The man hesitated, but Sam's steady voice and Buddy's tense stance convinced him quickly. He nodded and began gathering his belongings. Sam and Buddy moved on to the next tent, where a young couple stood beneath a tarp, trying to cover their gear. They looked confused until Sam explained again that the area was in danger of collapse. The woman, her face pale and framed by loose blonde hair, immediately grabbed her pack. She did not question Sam's sincerity. Buddy stood between them, guiding them toward the safer trail. Sam heart pounded as he moved from tent to tent. Each time he repeated the warning, his voice firm but calm, shaped by years of speaking under pressure. The storm worsened around them, the sky deepening into a heavy shadow. The forest floor trembled slightly under the force of rising wind. As Sam and Buddy reached the last tent, a family with two small children rushed out carrying blankets and supplies, their eyes wide with fear as they felt the storm building above them. Buddy barked sharply, urging them toward the trail. The dog presence brought comfort and direction, guiding the children who held on to each other tightly. Sam led the group away from the western clearing, keeping his eyes on the shifting earth. The rain fell in sheets, now drenching the ground. A booming sound tore through the air, like a deep crack rising from beneath the soil. Sam felt the vibration travel through his boots. He turned sharply. In the distance, the western foundation beneath the castle gave way. The ground sank, then collapsed inward as a section of earth folded into the hollow beneath it. A cloud of dirt and broken stone erupted upward, carried by wind as the collapse echoed through the forest. The campers stared in shock, some covering their children's eyes. Sam watched with a tight chest. The collapse happened exactly where the diagram had warned. If they had stayed only minutes longer, the tragedy would have been unavoidable. Buddy stood tall beside Sam, his fur soaked, but his eyes bright and watchful. The dog tail was low, but steady, showing the seriousness of the moment. Sam reached down, placing a hand on Buddy, back feeling gratitude swell in his chest. It had been Buddy's instincts and urgency that pushed him into action with enough time to save the campers. The storm continued to rage, but the people were safe gathered now along a firmer trail farther from the castle. They looked at Sam with quiet disbelief and relief. Some nodded to him with gratitude, even though words were lost in the wind. Sam felt a mix of exhaustion and calm slowly settle in him. Once again, he had been forced into the role of protector, but this time he was not following orders. He acted because compassion guided him, because Buddy had sensed danger and refused to ignore it. The storm raged on behind them, as Sam helped guide the group deeper into the forest where the ground was secure. But no one had been harmed, not a single life lost. As the thunder rolled above them, Sam knew the truth. Buddy had saved them all. Morning light settled over the forest in a soft, pale glow, and the air felt cool after the long storm. Mist drifted low around the tall trees, and the ground carried the scent of wet earth and pine. The sky overhead was calm and steady, the kind of quiet that arrives only after a night filled with danger. Sam Walker stood near the entrance of the old castle, holding the journals and the fragile technical diagrams he had uncovered. Buddy stood close to his side, the dog calm but alert, with his thick coat still slightly damp from the storm. Sam felt a heaviness inside him, but it was no longer the weight of uncertainty. It was the weight of truth waiting to be spoken. He knew he could not keep the discovery to himself. People had been in danger, and the collapse of the Western Foundation had proved how real the risk was. Now the truth had to be handled by those who had the authority to act on it. With Buddy beside him, Sam made his way down the forest path toward the ranger outpost, where local authorities managed the region. As he walked, his mind moved between the events of the past day. The fear etched on the campers' faces as the ground fell behind them. The ancient journals describing the tragedy of the collapsed dome decades earlier. The discovery of the hollow foundation beneath the castle. Each memory sharpened his resolve. The truth had been buried long enough. The ranger outpost was a small wooden building set among tall pines. When Sam reached it, the door was open, and a park ranger named David met him with a questioning look. David was a middle-aged man with a weathered face, tan skin from years outdoors, and dark hair streaked lightly with gray. His build was solid and his expression usually calm, but when he saw the serious look in Sam's eyes, he straightened. Sam explained he had found old journals and structural maps inside the abandoned castle. He described the collapse of the Western Foundation and how the storm had triggered it. David listened without interrupting, but Sam could see the concern tightening his jaw. David had a reputation for being careful and methodical, shaped by years of handling emergencies in the forest. Sam handed him the journals and diagrams. David spread them across the desk, examining the writing and the marked structural weaknesses. Sam could see the ranger breath deepen as he understood the scale of what had been hidden. More officials arrived shortly after, including a woman named Laura, who worked for the County Preservation Office. She was tall, with dark curly hair, pulled into a loose tie, and wore glasses that framed observant eyes. She spoke with a clear, steady tone, shaped by years of research and public reports. Sam explained the history recorded in the journals, including the accident involving the falling dome and the decision by the Whitford family to hide the truth. Laura nodded slowly, with a mixture of sadness and disbelief. The truth that had been locked inside the castle was finally being acknowledged. Sam felt something settle inside him. Closure, perhaps. Or simply the sense that the past was no longer trapped in silence. But there was more. Sam remembered Buddy behavior near the western clearing the day before the storm. The dog had been restless and insistent even before they reached the campers. Buddy had sensed something in the ground, something foreign. Sam led the officials back toward the collapsed area, with Buddy guiding them. The rain had left the ground soft but stable enough to walk carefully. Buddy lifted his nose into the air and moved toward a patch of disturbed soil near a section of broken stone. His posture changed, becoming focused and intent. Sam felt his own heartbeat quicken. Buddy dug gently at the dirt and uncovered a small metallic object shaped like a rectangular device. Sam knelt beside him, brushing away mud. It was a compact tool with wiring and a mechanism built inside. David crouched next to Sam, eyes narrowing. He recognized the device immediately. It was used to test ground stability through vibration pulses. But placed near a weakening structure, it could easily accelerate a collapse. Sam felt a cold realization move through him. This was no accident. Laura examined the device carefully, her voice firm and steady, as she explained that logging companies sometimes use similar tools when they wanted to justify clearing land. A weakened historic building could be written off as unsafe and removed legally. Sam stared at the device, feeling anger rise in him. Not the explosive kind, but a quiet, controlled anger shaped by the understanding that lives had been put at risk for profit. Buddy leaned against Sam's leg, sensing his emotion and grounding him. David radioed the county office reporting the evidence. The officials began documenting everything, taking photographs and securing the device. The mood shifted from shock to determination. An attempt to destroy the castle for land development was no longer suspicion. It was fact. By evening, county authorities released an official statement acknowledging the hidden history of the old castle and confirming that evidence of deliberate tampering had been found near the western foundation. The truth about the Whitford family tragedy and the new threat created by the logging company was now public. Sam felt a mixture of exhaustion and relief move through him. He had not expected to uncover anything beyond an old, forgotten story. Yet the castle had revealed not only its past, but its present danger. Standing outside the ranger outpost, Buddy rested at Sam's side, his breathing slow and calm. Sam placed a hand on Buddy's head, feeling gratitude. Buddy had sensed the danger before anyone else. The dog instincts had saved lives not once but twice. The chapter ended with Sam watching the forest settle under the evening light, while the truth about the castle finally reached the world beyond its stone walls. The hidden tragedy had been acknowledged, and the new threat stopped because Buddy had found what others tried to hide. The morning sky stretched clear and pale blue above the forest, and a gentle breeze moved through the tall pines, carrying the clean scent of sunlight on fresh leaves. The air felt open and calm, resting softly on the land as if the storms of the past had finally released their grip. Sam Walker stood near the restored entrance of the old castle and watched the wind ripple the tall grass. The castle walls, once darkened by decay, now held a lighter tone after the careful restoration teams had finished their work. The stone arches had been reinforced, the cracked floors repaired, and the surrounding grounds cleared of danger. What had once been a forgotten ruin had now become a place of learning and remembrance. Sam looked at the large wooden sign placed near the pathway. It described the castle as a historic site dedicated to teaching visitors about natural disasters, old construction methods, and the importance of safety through education. Students and hikers often visited the area now walking through the halls to understand how time and weather shaped the land. Sam had been hired as both the forest manager and the caretaker of the castle, a role that suited him more than he expected. His work included guiding visitors, checking the stability of the grounds, and ensuring that the forest trails remained safe. He could feel the purpose in every task, a purpose different from his days in the military, but just as meaningful. Standing beside him, Buddy watched the forest with bright, steady eyes. The dog, strong and noble with tan and black fur, stood with the quiet confidence of a guardian. Buddy had become well known in the nearby town. People called him the hero of the forest, and children often came just to see him standing proudly near the castle steps. Sam gently rubbed Buddy's head, feeling the warmth beneath the thick coat. The dog leaned lightly into him, showing trust and calm affection. Sam felt something peaceful rise in his chest. For the first time in many years, he was not drifting from place to place, searching for something he could not name. He had found a role that aligned with who he had become, someone shaped by hardship, but guided by a desire to protect. Later in the morning, a small group of visitors arrived. Among them was an elderly teacher named Mrs. Green. She was a thin woman, with soft gray hair tied neatly behind her head, and a warm expression shaped by decades spent with children. Her posture was gentle yet steady, and she spoke with a clear, patient voice. Mrs. Green greeted Sam politely, and introduced her group of students. She told them Sam was the caretaker of the forest and the castle, and that he knew the place better than anyone. Sam felt humble hearing her words. He guided the group along the stone hallways, showing them how the old design had been rebuilt and how the castle once functioned as a refuge during storms. He explained the importance of understanding ground conditions and natural stability. The children listened closely, their faces filled with curiosity. Buddy walked alongside them, occasionally stopping so the younger children could pat his back. Some of them whispered to each other, calling Buddy a brave dog. Sam felt a warmth in his chest, watching the dog's steady presence bring comfort to others. When the tour ended, Mrs. Green thanked Sam for his time. Her kind eyes studied him for a moment, as if seeing something beyond the surface. She said, "You have given this place its voice again." Sam nodded quietly, unsure how to respond to praise, but grateful for her sincerity. As the group left, he stood alone in the great hall, listening to the wind flow softly through the restored windows. The sound carried through the stone corridors in gentle waves, almost like a quiet song. Sam let the sound settle into him, easing the last shadows of his past. He knew he would always carry memories of service and hardship, but now those memories no longer weighed him down. They had shaped him, but they no longer defined him. In the afternoon, Sam walked along the outer path of the forest, checking the trails as part of his routine. The sunlight filtered through the branches, casting soft shapes across the ground. Buddy trotted ahead, then paused, often looking back to ensure Sam followed. Sam watched the dog with a faint smile. Buddy's loyalty and instincts had saved lives. The town recognized it, and so did Sam. To him, Buddy was not only a companion, but a reminder that hope often came in unexpected forms. When they returned to the castle entrance, Sam paused and looked at the structure that had changed his life. The wind brushed across his face, carrying a cool whisper through the stone openings. He listened carefully, letting the quiet settle into him. This place had once carried secrets and pain, but now it held purpose. He felt at home in a way he had not felt in years. Sam sat on the stone steps with Buddy resting beside him. He let his thoughts wander through the moments that had brought him here. The discovery of the journals, the danger beneath the ground, the storm, the collapse, and the truth finally revealed. Each moment had guided him to this new place in life, a place where he could protect rather than fight, a place where he could heal rather than endure. As the wind swept across the courtyard, Sam placed a hand on Buddy's strong shoulder. He whispered softly, though without urgency. He knew now that everything he had faced had led him to this quiet corner of the forest, to a future he had not expected, but one he deeply welcomed. With the sun lowering behind the trees, Sam and Buddy sat together, listening to the soft hum of wind through ancient stone. And in that peace, Sam understood with complete clarity he had finally found a true home. In the quiet days that followed, Sam often reflected on how an abandoned castle deep in the forest had changed not only his life, but the lives of many people around him. What began as a search for peace became a journey of truth, courage, and renewal. Sam learned that healing does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it appears in small steps, in the loyalty of a dog, in the kindness of strangers, and in the steady work of rebuilding what was once broken. The community that gathered around the restored castle showed that people are strongest when they stand together. The forest that once held silence now held hope, and the old stone walls that once hid tragedy now sheltered learning and unity. Buddy became a symbol of instinct faithfulness and quiet bravery. And Sam found his purpose again, not through battle, but through service compassion and listening to the gentle voice of the land. A story like this reminds us that every day carries a chance for renewal. Even in moments of fear or uncertainty, something good may rise from places we least expect. Some call it strength. Some call it grace. Many call it the quiet miracle of God guiding us toward the path we need. May this story remind you to look for small blessings in your own life, to trust that God still works through ordinary moments, through courage, through kindness, and through the people and animals placed in our path. If this journey touched your heart, share it with someone who may need hope today. Leave a comment, join our community by subscribing, and let us continue walking this road of faith together. May the Lord bless you, keep you, and guide you with his gentle wind wherever you go.